session. Thank you. I have item number 8. I'm going to call that ready with a question mark. We'll skip and Council Caldwell should show up. Councilman Brady.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll start with item 16. Is there someone from NBD to talk about this one, or?
Creature of routine. I'm sorry, everybody. Matt OJ, Commissioner of Assessment. I do have a new letter for the clerk, but we are requesting shelter rent agreement for La Liga in conjunction with Acacia. This is a scattered site housing development on the west side of the city. We're looking for permission for 68 units, not 67. Developers do have one more unit to add.
Commissioner, this would preclude them from having a pilot agreement with CITA, correct?
Yes, two exemptions can't run concurrently.
They're aware of that. I never assume anything, but they're aware of that,
Yep.
right? Okay.
They are. They're sophisticated and have been well briefed.
Is this the same La Liga that's currently on the west side, operating on the west side?
It is, yep.
Okay, and they're getting into housing development?
So they're working with a partner who has done a lot of housing in the city and has recently gotten into the upstate market, has a new senior housing development called Virginia Square in Buffalo. Pretty well received so far, I think.
I think the management aspect of this, we're asking them to consider some of the people we want them to manage the project, so, once it's built.
Other questions on 16? Okay. Want to take 17?
17, requesting permission to enter into a lease agreement with Baruch Park Place and Zamir for a portion of the 5th floor of the office building we currently occupy at 300 South State. Citizen Review Board is hoping to move from the 7th floor to just under 1,900 square foot suite on 5 that offers well, operational efficiencies, but generally more discretion for the work they do.
Would they be the only office on the 5th floor?
Social Security Administration currently occupies about 1/3 of the floor. They too engage in, but the only one of ours. Yes, this is just one suite within about a half vacant floor.
Commissioner, is this also inclusive of security, or is it going to be?
I think security is going to be shared with the current operations there. This is going to be a floor where drop-ins aren't necessarily encouraged. They would first be fed through the concierge. They'd be encouraged to go through the mag up on 7, and then be only buzzed in on a case-by-case basis on 5. Locked suite, 2 doors to get to any of the offices, conference room in the suite. But a few layers of security already exist.
And this meets all of the office space requirements?
I shouldn't speak as an authority to that. I know Raynette is right here, ready to help me, but yes, as I understand it, yes.
Raynette Relaford, Administrator for the Citizens Review Board. It does meet the office requirements in terms of for the number of staff that we have currently. The administrator, the community engagement, data analysis, legal secretary, and it is going to give us a bank for our interns. We have 3 interns here from SU, so it's going to give us a style for them to be able to be there. There's a large conference room there who we can fit all of our board members around one table so that they can review body-worn camera footage or things of that nature. It'll also be the room that we will utilize for hearings, so we're not looking for another space as it relates to that. It'll have enough space in there for that. If we were to increase in staff, it would not have enough space, but it does have enough space to allow us to, it'll have a space there for the investigator position that you allotted money for. So it will have a space available for that as well, because we don't currently have, so it has 5 offices and a conference room. And it does meet in terms of your question as it relates to security. From based upon my understanding of how it's supposed to work, security downstairs is supposed to ask where this person is going. They're supposed to call upstairs and let us know, and then it will be a buzzer on the outside of the door. The concern that we had up there on the 7th floor was the ability to not see our clients in a space that was confidential for them. There was only a conference room on the outside, and which people were walking by and could see. There was also, our space was where the large conference room was, and so we couldn't really talk to our clients, complainants confidentially, or ops couldn't come over and provide that information. But now that we are going to be in a closed space, we can share information the way that we need to share information and talk to the public the way that they need to be talked to in a confidential manner.
Counselor, Renette showed me the space when I happened to be over there for a meeting, and her current space is not suitable, I don't think. So I would be heavily in favor of this.
And it does give us the ability to have our file cabinets in another separate space and for it to have a key fob in there, and we can still lock that room as well. So we'll lock our file cabinets with all the cases, because that was a concern as well, and put all of those in there and still not have access. And even if somebody comes in as a complainant or anybody, they would still need to have a fob to access the files.
Well, I'm glad this is happening because it sounds like it's such an improvement from where you were to where you are now, based on the needs of CRB.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor, can I say something? Matt, from where we stand here, it looks like the contract is 5 years, but Renette, you all is gonna, you can explain that.
Yeah, the goal is that the city generally will pay for this year. Going forward, Raynette is already in conversations to get this into the CRB budget going forward.
So you all can know that it will be over on her side.
Is that how we handle
It is,
the
it
normal?
is not, no.
So why is this different?
I don't want to go so far as to say we're moving in that direction, but it has been discussed that perhaps departments should be responsible for their own real property expenses. And perhaps CRB offers a pilot case, but either way, it's something we're talking about.
Should do that. It's a good idea because every department wants more space, whether they need it or not. So this creates incentive for departments, not about Renette, but in general, departments.
No, this is positive,
Like
and
much
Raynette has been awfully gracious about this, embracing the idea that we do it this way going forward, and we look forward to exploring it with other departments.
When you say other departments, which departments would you include in that?
Anybody who moves in the future, anybody who is operating out of space outside of these four walls.
So when we're looking at the need that we have right now, and so that's what we're looking at in terms of that. When they approached me and told me that it would then need to be added into the budget, again, we have to come before this body and you have to decide whether or not you believe that that is correct or feasible for it. But in terms of us needing to move right now, we need to move right now so that we can.
We get that. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out this charge in departments, but we get
Yeah,
that.
and that's what I was presented with, and they said that that's what they would be looking to do. And I was like, well, we definitely need to move, and if that is something that needs to be, worked out, then we have really no choice because we need that space. We need to be able to do the work.
So we'll
I
revisit it.
think President Hudson was talking about in the future if other departments decide to move.
Mike Canizaro? I've got a question for you. So financially, is there, I know in terms of flexibility and for each department to do what they need to do is great, but financially, is it where are we with that? If each department is able to, would we still be able to stay within that, frame?
I believe once City Hall Commons goes back on the roll, those property taxes will cover the lease payments to One Park Place. That's at least my understanding of it right now. Does that answer your question?
No, I'm asking about these pending direction that we are going into. Has it been analyzed financially whether it is a good idea to designate resources, independently for each department?
It's really more of a budget question, right? I mean, like going forward in your budget, you would say, you know, we're going to charge the department for the space they use so that the department's going to understand the trade-off between I've got one less employee because I wanted 4 conference rooms instead of 2, or, you know, so that'll be something I think for next year's budget you guys should think about is if you're renting space and the city's out putting it, allocate it to the department based on how much space they're using.
Well, we don't even know what other departments are even asking for extra
No,
space. You
but-
know, I'm just saying in the future, maybe. Yeah.
We're a little off field, I think, too, of this. I think we're all in agreement about right now it's CRB, get her out and get her in this space if we're good to move to the next one.
Yeah, we have to look at the next budget and try to figure out where you guys going and maybe sit down with the budget director and have a conversation about this.
I have a question. Have you had any other departments come to you about confidentiality and space issues?
No, actually, me personally, it seems like by and large, the open bullpen situation works for NBD and affiliated departments up there. HR hasn't yet moved in. They do have kind of a more segregated space in the corner of the floor. But so far, no, feedback has been positive.
Counselor, CRB is under the council administration, administrating, you know, they administrate CRB, financial. Not a city department.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Legislation does, like we all know, talk about 5 years. So while we're definitely approving it this year, does that have implications for the next 4? Like we're locked in under the.
We're contractually obligated to pay and
Right.
enjoy the right to be there. We didn't want to encumber too many councils going forward with a 7 or 10-year lease, which is why we settled on 5. Also wanted to offer Raynette the flexibility to possibly change if this became unsuitable. But yeah, for years 1 through 5, we're locked in.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Go to item 19.
Common Council, Mike Canizero, Commissioner of Finance. So we were here a couple months ago for the city software systems project. We've kind of finished phase 0 or phase 1. So the additional money here is looking to implement a new payroll software and a new human capital management software. So really that is looking to decommission the AS400 from payroll. This is, you know, AS400 is not going away in the short term. I mean, we're going to be on both platforms for at least a year, but really I'm viewing this as a strategic investment into a software that, you know, processes over $130 million of payroll annually when you're using something from the 1980s. You know, if you think about your cell phone, you're renewing your cell phone every couple of years. We haven't renewed our payroll software in over 40. And just functionality is very limited. We've patched with all the new union contracts. Payroll is a very manual process that is very cumbersome and takes a lot of time. A new, you know, payroll software will also just, as far as connecting grants and projects, getting salaries associated with there, like I believe like our grant reimbursements will go up because we're not doing manual journal entries. The technology is integrated together. And as far as EY, you know, they know the best practices. We don't build out software very well internally. We don't have the resources or the experience. They're the people that do this. And with their experience, I mean, you know, we want to be, you know, best practices. We're not necessarily going to get there. So I think that blend of this is what we can do, this is the best practice, this is where we're leveraging their experience to make sure that we're getting the best software system possible.
I have a question.
Yep.
I do think we do have to get up with the times, right?
Yep.
And I appreciate that. But my question is, do you guys so we get a lot of different, you know, bonding ordinance of, oh, we need this done, we need this, we do, and it comes to get others like this. Do you guys have like a strategic plan of like all the steps that you're doing, as far as updating software where we are? Because I apologizing ahead of time. I've heard you guys come up here several times about this software, that software update, and it gets a little figuring out where we are.
Historically, no. I think in the last couple of years, we have the change management committee now. We've kind of built out digital services a lot more. You know, we've added resources to, you know, IT, API, digital services that now we are starting to kind of come up with a strategic plan. I think all software purchases need to go through Nico and his team, so they're aware of it. It was the wild, wild west. The department said they needed something, they got it. How does that integrate into, the other softwares? We weren't doing that type of strategic analysis, whereas I think now we're kind of starting to, and this is kind of the first steps of that.
So does Nico's team and everybody else, is this software going to go coincide with what they have currently right now, or are we going to have to update their system as well to coincide to be able to work with this?
I would need to know specifically what you're talking about. Like, yes, like the goal for this is, I know Water's using, and I'm blanking on the acronym, like a CMMS as far as repairs and maintenance, and when a street was, when a water main was repaired or whatnot, that ideally would feed into the new ERP. I mean, this will help with the road reconstruction. What streets did we do work on in the last 10 years? What streets haven't we? So really, it's, these manual spreadsheets that are being maintained in various departments that, if I open up something, are we looking at the same number? What spreadsheet are you looking at? Whereas this will kind of help centralize all of that, and we're all looking at the same information.
So the AS400 and BAS, everything is going to roll into all of this new programming? Because I've been hearing it for the last 8 years.
I'm
that it was
hesitant to say
gonna work
all,
together.
but really, it's supposed to integrate most of our software. So I mean, like property taxes are through e-tax right now, which ideally that will integrate with a new ERP that, we process a number of journal entries every day. That's a manual preparation. CPC that goes to accounting that then we're posting it, whereas that, it's a button. So as far as the duplicated efforts, duplicated work, you type a number once, we shouldn't have to type that again. We're typing that number 3 or 4 times today.
So is payroll already integrated?
No, we're evaluating, we're looking at an Oracle Cloud payroll project. And then really where EY is going to come in is, AS400 is down here right now, PeopleSoft is here. Well, then what happens is PeopleSoft goes down here, new payroll's up here. Then you're dumbing down a new software to meet your old software. And that's historically where
And
we've
you brought up PeopleSoft, so let's talk about PeopleSoft because you say you're dumbing it down, right? So we've spent millions on PeopleSoft. So we're going to do this new program. So where does PeopleSoft fall in here with the millions of dollars that's been spent?
PeopleSoft will be replaced.
Okay.
And you did mention, I think, earlier during the year, there was a conversation that PeopleSoft, the license is slowly getting, is going. So eventually we need to replace it anyway, right? Rick, that was our comment, that was what I remember from our conversation this past spring, wasn't it?
PeopleSoft is maintained by the county too.
Okay.
So we don't, it's not technically our software.
But it is going. It's going to eventually go.
Yeah, eventually PeopleSoft will hit end of use, kind of like AS400 did. So regardless, PeopleSoft either needs to be updated or replaced. And we are still in that planning phase of deciding, well, that's on Mike because PeopleSoft is almost exclusively finance. But that's on Mike to decide if PeopleSoft is worth updating or finding a new system that gets us to close that gap.
Because I'm not laying this on you, right? But when they came to us, Pat Nader, you'll remember this, you were here. PeopleSoft was the next best thing since sliced bread. It was going to keep us updated. It was going to put us above the fray. And now we're saying PeopleSoft is going to be non-existent at this point. And can you give me a number of how much money we've actually spent in PeopleSoft? You don't have to do it off your head, but you can get it to me because I know it's in the millions.
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Any other questions?
I think we all voted against it, as a matter of fact, President.
I think we voted against it too, and it got pushed through, so.
Thank you. This one, are we on 21?
Oh, wait, where we at?
It's 19, right?
We just did 19. Was 20 included in that too, Mike? Yeah, it was, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
we're on 21.
Gotcha.
I don't know who wants to present it, but.
To fund a legal settlement that you approved not too long ago. And I think to the extent you have questions about that, maybe it stays as an executive session, but it was basically a settlement that paid for a position for a period of time. So to make the department whole so they can fill the position, we're transferring money from settlement and claims to this department. Any questions?
Thank you. 22.
Leah Whitmer, Director and Chief ALJ for the BAA. This is just reallocating funds that we already have in our BAA budget to be able to expand our service of the non-compliant property code violation tickets if we need personal service or specifically so that we can serve the Secretary of State directly to serve LLCs or corporations. So we're just constantly tweaking the ways we're trying to get tickets out the door. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam President. Oh, you want to come up? Oh, no. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Blessings to all today. I have items 9 through 15.
Tony Williams, Commissioner of Parks and Rec. Good afternoon, Madam President and members of the council. I have agenda items 9 through 14. Agenda item 9 is just a for our Christmas tree lighting. It's a contract with George's Pro Sound. Agenda items 10 through 13 is an increase, an amendment to an ordinance. It's an increase for architectural services. Agenda item 14 is also for our Christmas tree lighting. Do we have any questions on any of those?
All right, you just went from, wait a minute. You just said, you have any questions? I feel like we in class. No, sir. No. I'm not sure. We could go back to 9. Counselor, does it need a counselor?
No question.
Cuckoo. Wait. So, do anyone have any
We'll get
questions?
into detail about agenda items 10 through 14. 10 through 14 is an increase to our 4 current architectural service contracts. We're requesting an increase of $31,250, not to exceed that amount. This will allow us to internally support our current and ongoing potential projects.
Okay, so we're going to go back to 9 first.
Okay.
I'm just going to make sure no one here has any questions. Anybody have any questions? We're all set with 9? Okay, now we can go to 10. So, okay, anybody have any questions on 10? Any concerns, any questions? Go ahead.
I think 10, 11, 12, 13, they're all give you the flexibility to choose the outfit that you want to address the parks issues, correct?
It allows us more flexibility in utilizing architectural services. Currently, we work with engineering a lot. Engineering is, as you know, dealing with the whole city. And at Parks, we have the infrastructure as far as staff to be more hands-on with our current projects. So this increase will allow us more leeway in dealing with our architectural services currently.
I want to commend you, Commissioner, because you did list exactly what they're all doing.
Yeah.
As far as, and that really is important because what particular architectural firm is doing what particular project.
Absolutely.
So I want to commend you because that saves you a lot of time up in front of us.
That's why I was trying to, thank you, Counselor.
But slow down. I do have a question really quick about 9. So I should have asked you this offline, but I'm just going to ask you this, and I'm not sure if you're going to know it. You can figure it out. For the tree lighting ceremony, this right here opportunity is only for the one downtown at Clinton Square, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we tossed around the idea of putting this out to bid, but considering that the tree lighting is of somewhat importance, I figured it would be good to stick with who we know.
Yep, no problems. Okay, 14.
14 is Trump Tight 315. We're requesting approval to move forward with them for the tree lighting as far as entertainment. Trump Tight is a band that's been playing at the tree lighting for several years. Everyone seems to be a fan favorite of them.
Awesome. Any questions?
This is a little unrelated, but I've been to the menorah lighting a couple of times, and it's normally not super well attended, but this year, maybe, given everything going on in the world, so it may just be something to think about if we want to do some extra entertainment or something like that for that event this year.
I'd love to talk offline with you, Counselor, about that.
Thanks.
Woosah, baby, woosah.
No, I just want to say to the commissioner, you have been great, man, especially at the south side.
Yeah.
You've been fantastic, and, you know, we have. No, he knows what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
so.
appreciate
So
that.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Likewise.
Yeah.
I breathe every day.
Good job.
So, I have items 15.
Oh.
Asking for a resolution in recognition of Sarah Collins Rudolph. She was the 5th person in the 1963 Birmingham bombing. She will be visiting Syracuse to talk about the trauma and what she endured during the time, but also how she overcame that. So I'm asking for a resolution. I'm hoping all counselors will sign off on this.
Yes, ma'am.
For this one.
I think we'll all co-sponsor.
Yep.
Thank you. Madam President, I'm all set.
Thank you. Laughter is the best medicine, huh? Councilor Patty Agua.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, mine doesn't work. Oh, it works. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Richard, can you please take it on?
Absolutely. Thank you, Counselor. Rick Alsever, Director of Human Resources. Item number 23 is to engage PROACT with our annual flu clinic. We'll be hosting 2 this year at DPW on the 2nd of November and One Park Place on the 8th of November.
Is this just going to be administered? I see it says 500 city personnel at a cost of $19,000. If we don't have 500 people take the flu shot, is there anything that's going to be reimbursed, or is it just a one-time flat rate?
Yeah, so it's not to exceed amount. So we get billed by the shot, by the vaccine.
Thank you.
So if we should have more than 500 people wanting this shot from the city, then we can review that too?
Yeah, we would have to redo it. That's based off of we built in a little bit of a buffer from the last 3 years. I think we looked at.
Oh, so, okay.
So that's what we anticipate.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So on average, what's the percentage of people that normally participate in something like this, Rick? Is there?
So this coincides with
Special employees, you're right.
our benefits and wellness fair as well. So we've got 2 things going on at once. It's the benefits and wellness fair as well as the flu clinic. And so flu clinic, we have about 380 people participate annually. That's just here. And then we also have, about 700 engage in the benefits and wellness clinic fair that's happening at the same time.
So when you do this one, right, I know the last one they did COVID, they did flu, they did RSV, so is this just going to be flu?
Correct. This is just flu right now. That was put on by One Park Place, by Zamir, I believe is Zamir Enterprises.
Okay.
They put that on and allowed us to participate.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Gathers.
Good afternoon, Council. Neil Burke, DPW. 24 and 25 are related to using ARPA funds to update our existing but severely outdated emergency signal preemption system. This is what allows our fire department to respond as quickly as they can. This gives them the green light through a lot of our major thoroughfares, and we're using technology from the 1980s, similar to some other departments that you heard about. This upgrade would cover every single signal in the city of Syracuse. While our current system does not, we have most of them. This would bring us into the 21st century, allow for quicker response times, significantly increased uptime of the system, which is a very critical feature, and also cover every approach on every signal in the city of Syracuse.
So we will update this in another 40 years, right?
That I think wasn't done previously.
So is this software and hardware? It's the computer
Yes.
system and what we see at the intersection?
Yes. So it's items in the cabinet, which you generally won't see, but it's at the intersection. But it is also service software utilizing 4G, 5G, and GIS.
Would it be compatible with the potential BRT system?
It could be compatible with a potential BRT system. That's not really the focus, but it's a conversation we could have at a later date.
But that's critical with BRT. We talked about that with Centro, and they said that we have, because we control the signals, we have to make sure we have the technology lined up for that. So
Yep, this
Do we
is
need-
in line with that. Again, we're not focused on the transit part, but if we did choose to go that route, we're in a good position. Yes, we can.
yeah, we need to make sure that this infrastructure is going to support that so that we're ready to literally flip the switch.
Yep.
Wow, Neil, laughter is the best medicine. Yeah. Oh, okay, you didn't laugh every day. That's why you got caught out here a couple times.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 26.
Good afternoon, councilors. Corey Driscoll Dunham, Chief Operating Officer for the city. So I had reached out to Councilor Geathers and President Hudson and a few other councilors with some concerns about the impact of this legislation, but offered a compromise that I think meets the concerns that the council has brought to us. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Would you mind sharing some of the concerns that you have?
Sure. So the concern would be, to add every mixed-use property in the city, which is what this legislation would do, would add about 1,500 units to our sanitation routes. And from what the council has brought to us, most of the concerns have come from owner-occupied mixed-use dwellings. And so we would request that we amend the legislation to include continuing to provide sanitation service to owner-occupied mixed-use dwellings, which would add about 75 properties, as opposed to opening it up to 1,500 units across the city.
So going back to the ordinance, household generated waste, which means trash that comes from families. We pick that up.
If it's in a residential unit, we do.
So if there's apartments above an empty commercial space, a commercial space that was converted 20 years ago in a house on Burnett Ave, let's say, and that space has not been functioning as a commercial space for years, the two apartments upstairs now have to get a private hauler to get their household waste because they've been tagged as a mixed use.
So Counselor, they should have gotten a hauler 30 years ago when the city decided to draw the line at mixed-use properties. So the vast majority of mixed-use properties already have their own hauler because that rule has been in place for decades. And Ann Fordock has worked over the years to, when we do identify that there's a mixed-use property that has been receiving our service that shouldn't, according to the ordinance that passed years ago, we notify the owner, give them some time to adjust and say, look, according to the ordinance, you've got a restaurant downstairs and apartments upstairs, you should be using a private hauler. So we've worked to make sure that people understand that, according to the ordinance passed years ago, mixed-use property is not a service that DPW picks up. What we have found as we rolled out the carts is that there are a handful of folks who were receiving our service in error because we didn't have a system to track who should be getting it and who shouldn't be getting it. So we are proposing a compromise to work with those folks rather than opening the door to every single mixed-use property in the city. We'll work with those folks. They tend to be people who own the property, the business downstairs, they live upstairs, and work with those owners to continue providing service rather than open it up to people who years ago have already gotten private service, and now we're going to say, never mind, we'll provide you that service. So that's which again, I think the compromise that we have proposed addresses the council's concerns without adding, upwards of 1,500 new units to the sanitation routes.
They would still have to get private service for the commercial.
For the commercial, which we have found, which many people do. There have been, whether it's a funeral home, or, you know, people have to.
Hey, the funeral.
That's just an example. I haven't gotten any calls from counselor gatherers about the funeral home, but, you know, whatever the
Imagine
business
what's in
is.
those garbage bags.
Yeah, I mean, you know, most of those folks have, you know, but we want to make sure that we're people who live in the city, have businesses in the city, understand the argument to continue providing service to them, but to open it up to all mixed-use properties when those folks have already made arrangements years and years ago to get the private service, because that's what the ordinance required. Just seems, it seems that the compromise that we're offering can address the concerns that we've heard from the council.
So, and the ordinance was roundly ignored for a lot of years, obviously. We were picking up everybody's trash from all over the place.
I think you're right, Counselor. I wouldn't say that we were picking up all mixed-use properties, but we were picking up more than we should have been. And so, you know, DPW, Commissioner Robinson, Deputy Commissioner Ford, have worked over the years that when we spotted those, we let the person know. But there are a handful still remaining, and we want to work with them.
So we winnowed it down to, you said 75, but I think we had a conversation, you said 300.
Those are the folks that we've reached out to since Commissioner Robinson has been DPW commissioner, to say the sanitation workers would bring it to our attention that we think there's a business down here and apartments upstairs. And so we would work with that owner to say, you know, and those were not owner occupied. A lot of those were, you know, out of town owners or people that were not living above the property.
But they had household, I mean, obviously there was residents above like a business.
By definition, mixed use is a mix of residential and commercial.
So my suggestion would be to sunset for a year.
We'd be happy to work with them.
To work with the people for a year so they just don't cut them off. And then, but we keep the owner occupied. As far as collecting, I mean, somebody's got like an office in their house or something like that, we don't consider that a mixed use.
Yes.
I mean, under this ordinance.
Right, it's technically mixed use, but they would still receive city sanitation service. And so, you know, if that's our request of the council, and I would be happy to work with the city clerk to craft legislation that would reflect that amendment.
And can I ask you a question, though? I want to go back to what Councilor Schultz asked. So there's a mixed-use property with apartments upstairs, but the business part has been vacant for years. So what do we do with that? We just don't collect their trash?
So it's a mixed use, whether or not there is a business in there, that's what, you know, if people want to convert, if there's a vacant business downstairs and they want to start renting out the apartments and not use it as a vacant property anymore, as a vacant commercial space, they would reach out to assessment and code enforcement and say, I don't want this to be a commercial space anymore. I'd like to make this into residential. But right now, if it's a mixed use property, that means tomorrow a business could move in there. And, you know, for the city to monitor what businesses are vacant and which businesses aren't vacant, you know, and again, according to the ordinance, it's a mixed use property. And, you know, that's where in the past we have drawn the line to say mixed use properties should have their own separate trash service. But we're saying for those people who own businesses, live at their business, you know, we would continue to provide service to them.
So it's on the owner to just change that code?
Correct. We would just amend the ordinance to say that we provide service if the owner lives at the mixed use property.
And then they decide that they want to make that space something that's useful for the neighborhood, like a daycare center or something. Now they've got to go back to permits and they got to go back and get everything rezoned and approved, and it's just a hassle. So I don't understand, when in this city we have such a safe and affordable housing problem, we are cutting off households from trash. We are cutting off, people who are looking for, they can't afford the rent anyway. So now they're going to an apartment and the property owner has to get private hauling. You know who's paying that bill, so not the property owner.
But that's
renter.
not a change. Those apartment buildings with the commercial downstairs, years ago, the vast majority of these mixed-use properties already have a private hauler. That didn't change when we introduced carts. They already had a private hauler. And so rather than open it up to all these folks who have already made the arrangements that are in compliance with the ordinance to then say to our sanitation workers, now we're going to add 1,500 new properties to an owner who lives out of town, out of state, has a business downstairs.
Whether or not they live out of state or in state, they are paying property taxes already.
Right, but so do people downtown, and we don't pick up their trash. Like in the past, the city has drawn a line of who will provide sanitation service for. And I think it's very reasonable that if you are an owner who lives in the city, lives at your business, you live upstairs, for the city to continue providing trash service. I
And
think
how are
to
we going
open,
to track if the owner is living there? Because talk about an administrative chaotic nightmare. We already can't do that with our rental registry with some properties.
Mm-hmm.
In the first district, I'm only speaking about that. But if the owner gets any type of mail at that residence,
Mm-hmm.
they just have to submit it to codes and say, I don't need to be on the rental registry because I live here.
Mhm.
And
I
it's
mean,
a piece of mail.
are
So
they-
it's so much work for codes to have to go through those hoops. How are we going to do
do
this
they
with
have a star
trash?
tax rebate? I mean, there are ways that we assess whether or not an owner lives at the property. We do that for the rental registry. We do that through assessment. You know, there are a number of ways for us to evaluate whether or not an owner lives at the property. But to open this up now to 1,500 additional units for people who are not asking for it, have already made the arrangements in compliance with the ordinance, you know, we think the compromise works to address the concerns that the council has brought to us of people who had been receiving our trash service and suddenly that service ceased. In almost every case, that owner lives at the property.
Corey, I do take your considerations. We'll take it. We'll have further discussion with this amongst the council as well.
Okay,
Thank
great. Thank you.
you. Item number 27.
You didn't miss a beat. Welcome back.
Corey?
Ordinance, hello, for $2.9 million, which is what is in the CIP for parking garage rehabilitation program. This is based on the reports that CNS provides to us on a regular basis of repairs that need immediate attention and those that are more structural. Kelly Haggerty is here to speak to any detail of it, but this is what we had placed in the CIP for garage repairs, and so we're coming to the council for authorization.
Questions on this one? No? Before you go on to the next one, I think
Yes.
Councilor Caldwell had a question in regards to 26. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
26, where we are with the fines across the board?
So the council created the cart-specific $175 fine. Given that we're still in the 6-week grace period, we haven't cited anybody for any cart-specific violations, but we're ready to do that. But the proposed legislation would change that amount. But as before this legislation, we were operating that the cart-related fines would be $175, and so we're looking to begin that citation when the 6 weeks is up.
What about the tags?
What
The
do you mean?
stickers?
For
We talked about the stickers that we were gonna put, that you're gonna give to each household for if they have excess trash.
Yeah,
'Cause
so we
holidays
have-
are coming, and that's what I'm
Right,
saying.
Sure.
Like Christmas is coming.
Yeah, we have an alternative proposal to try and accommodate additional bags of trash. I can talk about that now or talk to the council offline, but we do have something that we think will meet the council's concerns without having to create an administrative burden. So I can talk about it now or talk about it offline, but I think we have a way that we can accommodate the additional bags of trash without it being an undue burden on either party.
So, just so I can be correct, you said there has been no violations issued?
Or cart-specific violations. If somebody put out a television or somebody put needles in their trash, those are things that have nothing to do with the cart. We've been citing those.
Okay.
But cart-specific violations.
So let me just ask this quick question. So we did the phase 1 rollout.
Yes.
We did the phase 2 rollout. So we're going to start fining after everybody gets used to the cart rollout.
That's what the 6-week period has been for folks to, it's been 6 weeks. Once we hit that 6 weeks from when the carts were rolled out, that's when we will begin issuing violation notices. We've given people 6 weeks. We've issued warnings to folks who have not been compliant, so that as a tool to educate them on what's expected. And when that 6 weeks is up, that's when we'll start issuing violation notices for cart-specific
So
violations.
there's been no cart.
So we haven't, well, we've been in this 6-week grace period, so we haven't issued any cart-specific violations. But once that 6 weeks is up, that's when we'll
And
begin.
is it November 1st?
Around then, yes.
So carts that are set out currently that have additional bags or have a couch or anything, do they get a ticket currently?
So if it's a couch, I mean, if it's something that was an illegal set out before carts were set out, it's still an illegal set out. But if you have your cart out and you have an extra bags of trash next to your cart, we're not citing that because that's a cart-specific violation, and so we're not citing that. We're issuing a warning to folks a sticker that says, just so you know, you're not supposed to have extra bags of trash.
So overweight bags
Mm-hmm.
are still a ticket that people are getting,
Yes.
even though carts have been rolled out.
Right, because that's a violation that existed. That's not specific to a cart. If you had a trash can before carts and you put 200 pounds of trash in it, you were going to get cited for that anyway. That's not specific to the use of the cart.
I don't see that detail in the cart material that people received. Overweight.
That's
I
a rule,
understand
right?
it.
That's a
I
rule
just
that
want the
existed
communication
ahead of
to be
time.
very clear to the public because it feels, again, chaotic and confusing to me, and the people don't know how to conform to the rules because the rules, most of them are unwritten. And this ticket that's $350 currently is being issued to single-family homes that have carts.
Yes.
Still.
Because they are having infractions that have nothing to do with carts.
Okay, so
and I don't know
wait.
that the compliance rate that we saw in phase one supports that it's been a chaotic, confusing rollout.
I just want to say this right, because I know we're talking about the carts because we're rolling the carts out now, right? But I'm gonna go back a little ways when we talk about getting fined for whatever you call it, illegal set outs.
Sure.
We spent thousands of dollars removing tires. We spent thousands of dollars removing TVs, which are all not acceptable to set out with your trash. So there are two separate issues here. There's the illegal set out, and then there's the carts.
Right.
So right now, our focus, I think, should be the carts, because the illegal set outs are gonna get dinged regardless. You set a TV out, you're getting dinged. You set tires out, you're getting dinged. So they're gonna get dinged regardless.
Right.
With an illegal set out.
We're giving them 24 hours, so you warn them and say, pull it back in 24 hours, if not, you'll be fined, so they have a full day.
And
I
when
do
they
want to
pull it,
mention that some of these names with the illegal setouts are very familiar to any city councilor because they're properties that are often cited by the codes department.
And again, we continue to see a 75% compliance rate. Once we issue the violation notice, 75% of people pull it back from the curb.
Now, does a person receive, do they lose their cart privileges if they have an illegal set out?
We haven't explored taking the cart back if someone fails.
Not taking it back, but are
They don't get
men
picked
and
up for
women
the
in
week.
sanitation, do they still pick up the cart even though there's an illegal set out? Or
If somebody sets a TV out and there's a cart there,
Yes.
the plan would be to
they're supposed
to
to?
take the cart, yes.
Okay, all right.
the way it's been done with this yellow ticket is if there is a perfect garbage can and a perfect blue bin and a television, they get a $350 notice saying, pull your stuff back within 24 hours or you will get this fine. So we all interpreted that to mean pull the illegal item back and your blue bin and your trash can stay out because they're compliant. That's not the case.
And we are exploring that with DPW Commissioner Robinson about how can we make sure that we're not setting people back, as we start to issue cart-specific violations, is there a way for us to take the trash and the recycling and leave the illegal set out?
I mean, we have two types of properties in my mind. We have household that we pick things up from, and we have commercial that we don't pick things up from. So
Correct.
there should be two different tickets. So when there is a massive debris pile out there that's not a cart violation, then they should get a residential ticket that says excessive amount of waste at the curb, or the cart was invalid, whatever. And then there's the health and sanitation ticket that should go to commercial.
As we
So
as we
are you
roll out
working
cart
on-
as we roll out cart violations, we would have a cart ticket and a illegal set out ticket.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, counselors.
Hey, Corey, one more time. Sorry. 27 and 28 were together, right? I'm sorry, my mind got...
Correct,
Okay.
yes, 27, 28 are companion pieces.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 29 and 29 and 30, I guess. Anybody hear this?
Good afternoon, Kelly Haggerty, Division Engineer of Public Buildings. 29 and 30 are for a project at the DPW MEM garage to do heating upgrades in some makeup air units and radiant heating around the perimeter.
Is this an RFP project, or this was already,
Pardon me?
is this going to be RFP'd, or what's going on?
We're actually using a Gordian cooperative purchasing agreement,
Okay,
which has been bid competitively.
thank you. Any questions on this? Thank you. All right. All right. Item 31.
Good afternoon, Joe Awald, Commissioner of Water. Item 31 is to consolidate previous year's unused capital equipment budgets into this year's budget to replace one of our trucks. Any questions?
There's a question. Because it's look like it's replacing more than one truck, actually. And I see the replacements on the book, but I don't see the ones that's trading out in the mileage.
So the item that we're replacing is the flatbed. It was the additional vehicle that we revised and added to this year's budget. Right now, that's
Okay,
what we're
for
doing.
600, well, no, okay, for 90,000, okay. But even with everything, with the low boy, the SUV, all of that, you have the trade out and you had the mileage, right?
Trade out and mileage?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have all that information.
Okay, so could you send it to me?
You got it.
I have a question, just like I asked.
Yes.
About lighting. Do you have like a strategic plan for the water department, like yearly? You get your budget and then you know, like, because everyone comes in the department to us and say, okay, we want this one. But you sort of know early in the year that this is what's going to go down and what you need, right?
For equipment or overall? Yes.
Equipment.
Yes, we have a
whatever.
strategic plan.
So is there any way you guys can share that with us?
Yes, I can share that with you.
Because it would just be easier for us to see like where you're trying to go, right? What you're trying to do. So when you come up here to be like, oh, okay, we saw this in his strategic plan. He's moving forward to do X, Y, and Z, you know?
Sure.
And this is just not you. I just think
Nope,
it's
I think
for
it's
all
a great
departments.
idea to have a
Thank you.
strategic plan, it's a roadmap of where you really need to get to.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions on 31? 32 is a waiver for Casella to dispose of our soils. They're the only local company that will do that. Any questions?
They're the only what?
Local company? And item 33 is a waiver for the underwater divers to clean our screens at Skinny Atlas Lake and at the reservoirs. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thirty-four.
Good afternoon, councilors. Mary Robinson, city engineer. 34 is a request to amend an agreement with CHA Consulting for one of our TIP projects, the East Calvin Street paving project from Comstock Ave to the city line. We're amending the agreement to add the detailed design phase for $292,000, resulting in a total cost of $534,000. This is a TIP project, 80% federal, 15% Marchicelli, and 5% local.
Okay, because I was going to ask, because it says a tip and it says 8.38 Marcia Shelley.
Yes, with the preliminary design, we only got 8.38, but with the amended agreement, they gave us the full 15%.
Okay, good. Good work, Mary. Yes. Okay.
An anticipated redesign to it, or will there be changes in the way it's designed?
No, this is just furthering the design, the preliminary design that was approved by the state. So this is like the final design plans, and then we go out to bid.
But if you're a constituent, you won't notice any different. There's not going to be bike lanes or anything different.
Oh,
about
I'd have to look into that to see what changes are being made. I don't recall. I have too many projects. I can get back to you on that. Item 35 is another TIP project, amending an agreement with Fisher Associates for the Midland Ave paving project from Ostrander to Route 173, which is West Seneca Turnpike. adding the detailed design phase for $294,000 for a total cost not to exceed $529,000. And very similar, 80% federal, 15% Marchicelli, 5% local.
But it don't say
Huh?
that. I was looking for Marcia.
It doesn't say that in the title, but it does
Okay.
say it in the letter.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions before we go?
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Okay, on to Councilor Devers and Hogan.
Councilor Hogan?
Yes, 36, 37, 38, long awaited.
All right.
Syracuse Developmental Center.
Good afternoon, councilors. Eric Ennis, Neighborhood and Business Development. So items 36, 37, and 38 are all related to the Syracuse Developmental Center site. 36 has to do with amending the scope of work. We've been working for quite a while now with CNS companies. This is going to modify that scope of work to incorporate, as well as some of the design work for the infrastructure, new streetscape, the work that's going to be happening in the development after demolition and clearance has taken place. That said, item number 37 and 38 have to do with the bonding authorization related to the phase that we're preparing to enter into. Next month, we will be issuing a competitive bid to solicit and then select the demolition contractor to clear the entire site to make way for the redevelopment. This will authorize that funding. And then, as we've talked about in the past, we have the New York State funding that will ultimately reimburse these expenses, but seeking the ability to authorize the bond funding and financing to move forward to next steps. Happy to answer any questions, though, but all of the scope of work is going to relate to the demolition, the site clearance, the hauling of the fill and materials, as well as the construction monitoring and management. So all of that work will be getting underway once we've selected that GC for that project.
Eric, I'm okay 37, 38. 36, I'm a little puzzled. I mean, could you elaborate on what CNS is doing as far as their prepping for the bid for the demolition,
Sure.
correct?
I think the best way, there's almost two phases related to the project. Phase one has been the demolition scope of work, which all of that will be included in the package and the competitive bid that we issue. CNS is largely finishing and wrapping up completion of that. Then what we're also doing is when we're looking at the streetscape, the infrastructure, the work that happens once the demolition has been completed, CNS is now working with us and modifying that scope of work to incorporate design of that for the finished product of the site. So this is really the roadway that's going to link the different buildings all as part of the development.
So where do we stand with SECRA then? Do we?
So we have seeker was already completed and authorized and passed by the council for the demolition phase.
finished.
Yep, and then there will be a seeker phase
Secret
that will
after the
come.
demolition,
Correct.
correct?
Yep, as part of the overall development.
Okay, so we'll have two SECRAs on it.
Correct.
in
Yep.
essence. Okay, I was wondering where the second one was going to come in because obviously you want to do it after it's.
Sure, and we are getting there. We've made progress. Certainly, this one is going to be the most tangible in being able to see the site and the demolition getting underway.
So we working, and I know you do a very good job with this, Eric, because when I asked you to come and speak to organizations as well as owners who have trucking and companies,
Sure, yeah.
are we connecting to the minority businesses who have the haulers and trucks that they're involved in this?
We are. So we're talking directly with the budget office as well as the MWBE utilization, that division within the Department of Budget. So that is to promote this as widely as available as we can. We also are working with Empire State Development to promote this out to MWBE contractors and firms. We'll do the initial competitive bid, which will allow us to select the larger overarching firm that takes on the project. But then even after that firm has been selected, our goal is to continue to promote these opportunities to serve as subcontractors on the project as well. So there's been numerous ways we wanted to promote and highlight this project. And so we're at that stage now where we'll get this out through competitive bid and want to make sure this is as inclusive as a process as possible.
Can we do some kind of informational session within? Like, so I love all the tactics that we're using to make sure it gets connected, but it seems to be a lot of people still missing the boat, right? Some of them small bit, they call me like, hey, what's going on? They're not a part of it. And there's a lot of them who have got their trucking license, they're a part of, but they're not a part of that.
Sure.
So they're missing out.
Yeah, so I know that we're already having conversations about making sure this is disseminated and advertised far and wide. As far as outreach and actually holding a tangible physical meeting, I'm more than happy to connect with you offline and talk about what's the best way to do that. But yes, I mean, our goal is just to make sure as many people know about this opportunity as possible.
So Eric, Counselor, if I can jump in on there. Let me ask you this question, right? And I don't know if it's doable or not, but I hear the same concerns. So is there a way that maybe once the RFPs go out, they can be put online so people can go into them and see the RFPs are on there?
So I know that there has been discussions around what's the
Tim.
best way to promote. I was just going
Come
to say,
on.
okay, I'm
Fix
going
your
to
face.
If we could just, but obviously, this will be probably a national company for a demolition project this size, correct?
So we want to make sure whoever is selected for this has the capacity to take on a demolition of this size and scale. The only thing I would just add is that there is requirements to use state-certified MWBE firms, which is all part of the
Subcontractors
funding.
that'll MWBE.
Correct. So absolutely, MWB utilization, there are key thresholds and requirements the project has to meet, but what ultimately the firms that we select for this is just going to have to be a firm that's going to meet those requirements, but also have the capacity to do this project in 2024.
Mr. Rudd will monitor it, correct?
Well, we have a division of equity, compliance, and social impact. So Rebecca Lumpkin is the assistant director of that, and the subcontracting goals for the state are the same as the city. So we're both 18 and 12. So to the extent the equity compliance team is doing outreach to anyone who has bought a truck, because we would like to proactively identify them as potential subcontractors. So they may not be the prime because it's a very huge contract, but they do have to subcontract 30% of the work. So that's how our directory in theory should work, or the state directory is that everyone's on there. The contractors can look at who's eligible to do the work, but to the extent some contractors may not know they have to do that. So if you know personally people, you send it to myself or Rebecca Lumpkin. We would like to do the outreach to make sure they're on the city directory and the state directory. And to the extent we need to do like a fire drill to help people get processed in a timely manner, which is a challenge, but we would do that because it's a huge project. It's a lot of money that seems like good prep for like I-81 type work. Like it's probably a good resume builder for companies. So 100%, if you know people, tell us who they are, we'll call them, we'll do everything we can to get them on our directory, which is now available online, to get them to apply to the state, to try to call people at the state to process the application. But we do need to do that now because Eric wants to do this. Everyone wants to do this in November.
They applied to the state. What's the process after that? Isn't it cumbersome?
When they apply to the state directory, I do believe there's a bit of a backlog. So that's where, if they applied, I think we'd probably be calling state representatives to try to get people processed.
Assemblyman Magnarelli's office just helped to consider.
Deputy Mayor, at the last big jobs table for I-81, the state talked about having an initiative to help local folks get vetted or approved to become, right? Does that fit in with this?
Absolutely does. Sharon Owens, Deputy Mayor of the City of Syracuse. So again, as Eric said, there's going to be a 30% requirement because these are state funds. There is a backlog in the state process. There are entities like Diversify New York and other entities that help people try to get through the process. The sooner we know who folks are, the better it is for us to get individuals started on that process. By the time we're through with our process into early next year, hopefully we can be able to get more people qualified, and we're going to be very intentional. We understand it's a huge demolition project, but we don't, as we look at it on the site, hauling, work on the site, preparation, smaller companies could absolutely do that work. And depending on where the project ends up, it's going to be a significant even subcontract.
Thank you. Okay, Tim, back to you. RFPs, is there any way we could post RFPs?
RFPs are posted, but then you request them and we send them to you so that when there's addendums, we can control the flow of information and make sure everybody who needs updates gets them, because a lot of the process is about equal access to information. So we do make people like sign up for it, but we do. And then a lot of these construction bids, people are basically buying the books to understand the specs and everything.
Well, I'm not
So
just
there are-
specifically talking about construction. We do a lot of RFPs for a lot of things.
I mean, the short answer is yes, we want to do that. So we have this whole procurement transformation, and we want We just went to an electronic application for the MWBE directory, so that's kind of like one thing crossed off. But we do need to have much more electronic purchasing, and we don't have that yet.
But we're working toward it.
That would be part of the technology probably that we would be considering buying with our Bloomberg philanthropy money. We have like $1 million of support, $500,000 of tech money. So in theory, that's one of the things we'd be looking at. How can we make a lot of things electronic so that you can submit your response electronically rather than 9 copies of
Or
paper?
even know about it, because it'll be right online. And I'm gonna offer a suggestion, right? Because we had the construction stuff, we get that. But we have RFPs in professional services. We have RFPs in all areas, and they should be prominent to where people can go right in, click on them, and find them.
Yeah, public facing, whether or not they're going to apply for it or not, it's good to know because they might know other companies that should be applying and supporting people who want to get into it. I mean, and I understand that if you make addendums and they've got the old application out there, but is there some kind of registration process that says, here's the RFP for so-and-so, click here and sign up with your email as there may be updates. You may be applying for something that is an old application. But I think public facing is really key.
Tim, while you're still up there, if we can go back to SDC, the plan is, how is the reimbursement going to work? We're going to bond. Are we bonding for the whole 26.4 or not?
We're basically bonding for the full amount, and then we have to spend it, and then we get reimbursed from the state after.
Did you say something about tranches? We're going to get reimbursed like every...
It is so based on the structure that we have with the state and with Empire State Development, there's a series of 4 tranches that will be, so as we've documented, we'll be documenting the expenses. Bonding is part of allowing the city to move forward with the project and then seek reimbursement from the state afterwards.
How long will the RFP be out there when we issue it?
So we don't have the exact dates yet for so one of the things that we're working on right now, we'll make sure that information is provided to the council in advance, but I don't know the exact length of time when it'll be out for bid.
With Barton, was it Barton or Judas, right? Who's doing the assessment?
CNS has
right.
developed the scope of work for it.
CNS is, so when they finish, when do you anticipate them finishing?
So within the next month, the target, our plan is to release that competitive bid in November. So it's soon. I mean, we're close.
The RFP will go out.
Yep, it's all part of that process, that being issued, and then we'll receive those bids back.
You know, obviously, if the housing crisis in the city, you know, the sooner we can.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you feel it too. But.
We are looking forward to getting this one out the door and keep it moving.
Okay.
And kudos for coming in under budget, 29 million, and you only have.
They haven't done the project yet, Counselor. So
Well, I know, but they're only asking for under budget, so it's at least commendable at this point.
We got good intentions.
They do, they do.
Of coming in under budget, right?
I'm set if Counselor Gathers is.
Yeah, he is.
He's
He's
set, I
definitely
guess.
set. Yeah, he said.
He's definitely set.
Oh, okay. All righty, Counselor Schultz.
Thank you, Madam President. I have numbers 39 and 40. Eric, please.
So I'm here to speak to
the
this one
honors.
as well. So Eric Ennis, Neighborhood and Business Development. So briefly, this is seeking authorization from the council to accept funding from the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council, or SMTC, to launch and develop a new program that the city is calling Community Streets. Essentially, the purpose and goal of this program is to fund small temporary pop-up projects that blend a combination of public art initiatives as well as streetscape improvements, and really matching the city's goal as a Vision Zero community. So this could be concept everything from pop-up bike lanes to some of the murals that we've seen with community intersections. This would basically be a grant program where we'd be able to make the $9,500 that we're seeking to authorize for community groups, organizations to apply for using this funding to develop community projects that would be brought to us and applied for. We're working very closely with SMTC, which developed a guidebook on how to launch and develop this program, and then ADAPT CNY would ultimately work as the volunteer organization to help with vetting, reviewing projects, making sure they're meeting safety standards, and then in 2024 is when we would ultimately see these projects come to fruition. So ultimately the goal and the consideration would be to fund this program in future years. We're having discussions about that. Councilor, the one point that you raised when you and I spoke, this funding was included and allotted for in the work plan that every year the SMTC puts together. But happy to answer any questions. Hopefully a project that's going to grow some community pride and also beautify the city as well as we do it.
I just want to thank SMTC, who's here, Megan and friends. This is an awesome initiative. My only wish would have been there were 2 more zeros at the end of that 9,500 because this is just so great. And paint goes such a long way, especially with striping our streets and calling awareness to drivers. So awesome job.
That's it?
Any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you.
Counselor Majuk.
You got threatened, so I'm going to make it short.
Wow, it's getting serious around here.
Who threatened you, LaToya?
It's coming from this end.
Good thing First Deputy Chief is here. It's getting heated.
Chief, go ahead.
Good afternoon, councilors. Rich Shaw, First Deputy Chief of Police. I've got 2 items. They're both requesting entry into requesting grants again. Councilor Hogan, like you like. Number 41 is an application agreement with the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for our canine, $15,000 for our canine explosive detection team, an amount not to exceed $15,000. No local match is required. That will be used for to help with vehicle heating and air conditioning for the dog's protection, as well as special collars to monitor their health.
Taking care of dogs with no local match? I'll take it. Anybody else? Question? All right, second one, Chief.
Second one is with New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services through the Law Enforcement Technology Grant, an amount not to exceed $3 million. We're going to use this for additional cops cameras, LED lighting, blight removal, and additional law enforcement technologies. No local match is required for this. This will be going along with our SEPTED projects that we've been to put the team together to try to work on blighted areas.
I'll tell you, Mr. Donovan, or former police officer Donovan, who's now, what's he, his SPT now, his special?
Special police officer.
Yeah,
Yep.
special police officer. He's done a terrific job on the west side.
Working very hard for us, yep.
Thank you.
Now, will we determine the locations later, or?
Yes, like we kind of have a map. The deputy mayor's been leading a group of people, a bunch of us from the police department, other departments, codes, and everybody. It's a holistic approach. We already have a bunch of areas. It's our high crime, high blight areas, and so this is just to help supplement some of the work we've already started.
Plus, I think some of the counselors had suggested cops camera areas, right?
Yep.
Right.
But this is so we're asking for $3 million. It's a $50 million grant for the whole state, so we're fighting for the money. Well, whether we get all $3 million now, we won't know, but this is what we're asking for.
Any letter of support?
Yeah.
Right, because we got you.
From the council?
We got you.
We rank
Okay.
with stolen vehicles in the state. Would that help us? Because I know
This
we're
is
at like over
designed-
800 in this year alone, so.
This is when the governor announced this grant, she did kind of, this 50 million was kind of geared towards help preventing stolen vehicles. So we're going to have to try to figure out, I think that terminology will help us a long way.
Other questions?
And before we move on, I just want to say this, fire department is not in here because I want them to know too. I think you guys did a phenomenal job the other night when the whole fire department and the whole police department was out there looking for a body in the water. They didn't find anything, thank God. But it was a great response, and I do know that if I fall in the water, you're coming to get me, so.
They're going to get Madam SWAT before anybody else.
But it was, they did a great job.
I appreciate
and
that.
Officer Dotson, I saw what we paid for the drones. He used the drone to try to locate the body in the water. So, yeah, it was a good investment.
Officer Dotson is one of our best.
I know
No
he
doubt
is.
about it.
Yep, so.
He practices the drones in the neighborhood too, so when there's one in my backyard, I'm like, oh dear God, they're coming for me. And it's him.
Anything else? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Allen.
You have items 43, 44, and 45.
Good afternoon, Council. Jake Dishaw, Deputy Commissioner of Code Enforcement and Zoning Administration. Item number 43 is an encroachment for an owner at 508 Hickory Street to rebuild an existing staircase from their porch that encroaches into the right-of-way. So the street line here goes right up to the porch.
So any set of stairs is always going to encroach. They're old, they need to be replaced. So originally, they're old concrete steps, so an encroachment was never in place. So now they're formally going through the process.
No questions.
Can
Thank you.
I ask a
Oh, go ahead.
question to him before he goes? You mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I don't mind.
Do a question to the council.
30
Is any of us has any of us been getting any phone calls about tent cities around the city? Right. Since you're here, Jake, don't mean to put you on the spot, but what is the process of how we tackle the issue with tent cities on properties?
So there is a slightly different way we approach it depending on where it's located. So is it private property owned by somebody else?
Yep.
Is it right of way? But generally speaking, we have a team. It starts with sort of a smaller group of the SubTed team that Chief was just speaking of. But we have representation from code enforcement and with a SPO on the team and others from, Sergeant Malinowski. And we identify these areas not only for just like the cleanup process, but we also work with MBD and we have staff that go out for engagement for services for the people that are living there. And I guess Commissioner Collins can speak to that a little bit more on who does that and what they do.
Thanks.
Michael Collins, Commissioner of Neighborhood and Business Development. I appreciate the question. I've texted with Mayor Walsh on a couple today, homeless issues today. What we do as soon as we identify a spot, we're looking to do a few things. So in my father's kitchen has already done a run by on one spot today where we saw items but not people to check on it. Found a tent that I happen to recognize. So I know we had engaged through rescue mission. So they either have gone on already or are on the way out to engage. So what we're always looking to do is to be able to engage whoever may be there, have them do an intake with either My Father's Kitchen or rescue mission, try to talk them into coming in to receive services, making sure that they're aware that the area that they are camping in is that's not legal, and so they will not be able to stay, and just try to continually get that engagement until we're able to get them inside. Once the weather gets colder, then they go to code blue at the shelters, which means that they have the ability, people that may not have been allowed in during the warmer weather because of behavior issues, at that point they're able to come back inside again. They'll do extra work to make sure everybody's safe. But we're just constantly working to make sure that they're engaged with, B, they're made aware of what options they have and what options they don't have. They're not allowed to stay. And then we work to clean and clear the site.
So should we contact MBD or you?
Or the police? Because I just talked to Deputy Chief Schaff.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's one up here on Green Street. They're living in a Penske van. It's a white Penske, and they're living in it. Then you have another one on Kirkpatrick. He has a Tennessee tag, but he's parked under that bridge every night. He's living in that vehicle. And I see it, so I don't know how nobody.
So I would say there's great communication between Neighborhood and Business Development and our different departments and Syracuse Police. So feel free to reach out to whoever your regular point of contact is for that. And between us, we'll make sure that something.
And the one at police, the Kirkpatrick one, I would send the police because this man, he walks around with a knife this big. He's very combative. And I really think he needs to be gotten from under that bridge.
Commissioner, also, knowing that some of these individuals are struggling with mental health, is there like a comprehensive strategy besides just temporary stuff that we are looking at?
So for any of us that end up engaging with somebody, if there is the appearance of mental health issues, which is very, very common, we have worked over really the course of the pandemic and to now to develop relationships between the street homeless outreach providers and the street mental health outreach providers. So either myself, somebody from my team, somebody from SPD, or one of the outreach providers also have the ability to reach out directly to Liberty Resources in those situations. So again, it's always best to go through, if anyone's concerned about safety, 911, it obviously is going to be the best way to do that. At the call center, I've been to the call center. I'm not going to speak for SPD, but I can say that they're working hard to coordinate everything.
All right, Counselor, you can finish.
All right, item 44. Good afternoon, councilors. Michelle Sapansky, Deputy Commissioner of Neighborhood Development. I have items 44 through 46. Item 44 is to add an additional contractor to our pool of folks for the emergency repair program, specifically an extermination company, which we do not currently have.
A good addition. Wow, I got a list.
Send them our way.
Excellent. I'm going to.
Is there any effort, do we have any kind of effort to try to recoup the money from the landlords? Or?
Yes, absolutely. So they are sent a bill for the services, and then if those do not get paid, they are rolled onto their taxes for the previous year, or the next year.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 45 is a request to authorize $240,000 for infill housing development for a set of scattered site properties. The addresses are listed in the agenda packet. These are all projects that have gone through the land bank. They've received a bunch of funding through New York State, specifically focused on minority development expansion. All of these properties will be sold to owner occupants once they're rehabilitated, and they're in locations that are complementary to a lot of the infill development that we're doing. The reason that these are coming through as waiver items is because using the source of ARPA, based on kind of a couple of the parameters for this particular project, as some of our other funding sources that we have would have put a lot of additional constraints on the developer in a way that we felt were kind of missed the point of the project. This is really just kind of gap financing to get that project through the finish line. And we did ask for both this particular developer as well as the developer for item 46 to submit all of the same documentation that they would have had they applied at the time that we put out the initial RFP. So we found that their materials met kind of the same standards.
We already started the work.
For this particular project, I do not believe so. They're waiting on basically this authorization so that they can close on their other financing through CPC.
Okay.
Any other questions? Similar situation with item number 46. We're looking to authorize $500,000 for to support the cost of development of affordable rental units at 1081 South Salina Street. This will be an overall mixed income and mixed use project that will include some ground floor commercial space, as well as a total of 24 apartment units.
And they'll have to get a private hauler.
I already called that out.
It's over 10 units, that's fair.
No, only thing I have, Michelle, is I know we talked about it and it's fine, but at some point when we're doing all of these and qualifying people, we should make sure that everybody falls in at the same time and not have all these scattered people.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. I think that with these two in particular, to the point of a lot of the conversation of how do we make sure that we're being intentional around making sure that we're reaching the right people. I think both of these firms are great examples of they're not necessarily regulars. They're both developers that have done work before, but I think it's a situation where understanding that that's a thing that we all prioritize, we feel like there's a time and a place for it, and it seemed conducive for these two in particular, but totally hear you.
Building housing is fraught with all sorts of difficulties in financing, and we talk about it all the time.
And I get it, because we need it. We need it badly.
I know we need it bad, but it's just like this, a lot of this stuff will be gap financing, obviously, so.
Any other questions?
Nope, I'm all set.
Thank you.
So moved.
Aye.
Victoria. Where is she? Jake.